Hi, I'm Denise Canellos. I'm a nutritionist here in Southern California. I teach nutrition in the food science department at Chapman University, and I'm a private practice nutritionist. I specialize in oncology, cancer, and chronic illness. Some of the things we see most often in the clinic and the things my students are so concerned about are the rising rates of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer in young people. So I'm always looking for some type of way to help my clients and my students with diet, right? Some way to make them less likely to develop these diseases. About 3 years ago, the World Macadamia Organization came to me and my colleague, Denise Webster, a food scientist, and they really wanted to investigate all of the nutritional properties of macadamia nuts. To be honest, I hadn't really thought about that. They were delicious. I loved them, but I never really thought of them as potentially a healthy food. I was wrong. So we looked through hundreds of research studies published in medical journals. They were done in human beings, not cells in a petri dish or animals. So these are studies we could rely on to inform our recommendations. What we found was that the fat in macadamia nuts is really, really good for us. We knew that they were a good source of healthy fat. We didn't know how healthy it was. We found that their low carbohydrate content and healthy fat content seemed to blunt the rise of blood sugar when people ate them. And we also found out that they don't lead to weight gain. So let me walk you through all of the nutrition information that we found about macadamia nuts. I hope you'll find it as interesting and surprising as we did. The good fats that macadamias have are predominantly unsaturated. Those are the ones that are good for our heart. They're really high in monounsaturated fats, which are exceptionally good for our arteries. The main monounsaturated fat in macadamia nuts is oleic acid. It's the same fat that makes olive oil so good for us. Macadamia nuts have a lot of it. Really, really excellent source of this omega-9 monounsaturated fat. They also have a monounsaturated fat called omega-7 palmitoleic acid. We have a lot less information on that, but I think research is coming, and that's something to watch for. In addition to these monounsaturated fats, which are so healthy for us, macadamia nuts are rich in polyunsaturated fats. The most famous of those are omega-3s and omega-6s. Right? So while macadamia nuts do have some omega-6 fats, specifically linoleic acid, which is an essential fat, they also have a pretty good amount of omega-3 fatty acids. This is really important because it makes the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6s a nice, healthy ratio. It's about 5 or 6 to 1 in macadamia nuts. Now, I'll tell you, the typical American diet is about 15 to 20 omega-6s to 1 omega-3, and this can lead to some problems. Macadamia nuts have a much healthier ratio of 5 to 6 omega-6 fats to every omega-3 fat. This puts them in the ideal range to have an anti-inflammatory effect. We'll talk about that in a second. Really, really important. But all of these fats are essential. These monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, especially the omega-3s, are essential for the health of our arteries and our circulatory system. So not only do they reduce our risk of developing cardiovascular disease, but they also improve the arteries leading up to our brain. And so in that way, research is coming in that's really exciting about how having enough of these healthy fats in our diet can stave off cognitive decline, not only as we age, but improve our cognitive function even when we're young. So these fats not only feed our heart good, healthy blood supply from healthy arteries, but they feed our brain as well. It's really important. We think about the brain is mostly fat, right? And the fat in our brain reflects the fat that we take in our diet. So the healthier the fat we eat, the healthier the fatty acid composition of our brain. So when we look at those monounsaturated fats, macadamia nuts are a close second to olive oil for that fantastically healthy oleic acid. And when we look at the omega-3 fats, macadamia nuts are right behind flax seeds and olive oil there too. Super healthy addition to our diet. So I touched on inflammation, and I'd like to expand on that a little bit, right? So inflammation is a normal response of our immune system when we are faced with an injury or an invader, right? Like a virus or a bacteria, right? It's completely normal and we need it. We need a healthy inflammatory response. So, inflammatory response involves starting the inflammation process and then resolving the inflammation process. We need the full spectrum to be healthy. Right. Omega-6 fats provide what our body needs to rev up or to start the inflammatory process, and omega-3 fats provide what our body needs to finish it, to resolve it, to make it go away in essence, right? And so when we have that healthy ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats, not only do these healthy fats help us have an appropriate inflammatory response, but they help prevent us from developing chronic inflammation. So chronic inflammation is inflammation that never fully resolves, and eventually it starts to feed on itself, which then leads to and exacerbates chronic illness in the body, just like those chronic illnesses we talked about a little while ago. So not only do the healthy fats in macadamias help us have the best inflammatory response we can, but a lot of those nutrients and phytonutrients or phytochemicals we have in macadamia nuts help as well. So we have a lot of polyphenols, which are potent phytochemicals. They act as antioxidants, some act as fibers, they do all sorts of things, but they really help mediate a healthy inflammatory response, right? Macadamia nuts are really rich in a mineral called manganese, which is needed by over 100 enzymes in our body, many of which also help us have a healthy inflammatory response. These enzymes also are necessary for healthy skin, healthy muscle tissue, healthy brain tissue, healthy bones, and healthy nerve tissue. So this abundance of manganese is really important in terms of our health, and it's not a mineral that we talk about often, but macadamia nuts are an excellent source of manganese. They have a lot of other vitamins and minerals as well, but that's the one I really wanted to talk to you about. Right. In addition, when we eat a lot of processed, overly processed, or we call them ultra processed foods, that can increase our levels of chronic inflammation. That can kind of start that inflammatory process over time, especially foods that are high in added sugars and high in saturated fats. We already know macadamia nuts are low in saturated fats. They have no sugar, right? They have very low amounts of carbohydrates. So this not only helps mitigate some of the extra sugar we often eat in our diet, but it can help blunt the blood sugar response that we see after a meal or a snack that includes macadamia. This is really important for people who are dealing with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes and really need to watch their blood sugar. Make sure it doesn't get too high. When we see this effect, we can add macadamia nuts to snacks and meals that we're already eating, and that can help blunt some of the blood sugar rise that we see after that meal by incorporating healthy fats and these other phytochemicals that are so good for us. So we've talked about the health benefits of the good fats in macadamia nuts, the omega-3s that are so good for resolving inflammation, the health of our arteries, that healthy omega-3 to omega-6 ratio that keeps us healthy, not only for our heart, our arteries, but also our brain, our skin, every part of our body. We've talked about the healthy phytochemicals, those good nutrients in macadamia nuts that help resolve inflammation and that help keep us healthy, right? Potent antioxidants as well. We've talked about the effects on our blood sugar of including macadamia nuts in our diet. You may be thinking, how do I get all these benefits of macadamia nuts without gaining weight? They can be high in calories, and it's true. They are high in calories, but let me tell you, those calories are actually worth it. They are calories well spent. We looked at several studies that showed adding macadamia nuts to our diet, as well as adding other nuts, did not lead to weight gain. And this was studies done over weeks and over months. So we can be really confident in saying that adding these nuts to your diet is not going to cause you to gain weight. I can't promise if you eat them coated with chocolate, but adding plain macadamia nuts or roasted macadamia nuts to your diet will not lead to weight gain. We didn't know why, so we found this study that was really interesting. One of the reasons why is this feeling of satiety or fullness, satisfaction that we get after eating macadamia nuts. It was a really interesting study that compared macadamia nuts to other snacks, right, that were similar plant-based snacks. And what we found was that the people, once they ate the macadamia nuts, they were satisfied. They felt good. They did not feel bloated like some of the other snacks. They did not feel heavy or sluggish like some of the other snacks. They felt good and they stayed full for the longest amount of time. That means that they ate them and they were not hungry again for several hours, whereas some of the other snacks, actually all of the other snacks, they were hungry in a much shorter period of time. So we think that might be one mechanism by which people are eating macadamia nuts and not gaining weight. This feeling of satiety, of feeling satisfied with what they've eaten, right? Which is actually really good news because the last thing I want to do is encourage somebody to eat something that's going to make their health worse, right? Of course not. We want their health to be better. And macadamia nuts, I am 100% confident, will help everybody achieve better health when they add them to their diet. Thanks for watching. If you'd like more information, more details on these studies, you can go to the World Macadamia Organization website, worldmacadamia.com, and you'll find it all there.